Okay, today in the toolbox, it will be toolbox number 3, how to prepare for registration for technologists, but it can also be applicable for engineers and technicians. There's just a bit of a difference there. Okay, next slide. Everybody knows me by now. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Chris Meinhardt. I'm a professional technician, a professional technologist. I belong to IPET, I belong to SAT and SAIC. I'm also an assessor, moderator, interviewer, and I'm also on the appeals board there. Okay, today I discuss how to prepare your registration at ECSA. So there's quite a bit of information you have to get. So where do you find this required information? What are the benchmark qualifications that you require? What are the requirements for alternative route? And do I need a mentor, or who can be my mentor? And also the ECSA guidelines, how do I use them and where do I find them? And in the end, we'll talk about and do a conclusion. Okay, the first step we're going to talk about is where can I get the required information? The first question you must ask yourself, where can I get the required information? Is what is the heading. Required information you can get on the ECSA website in the folder documents under the heading 3.32 new registration for professional engineering technologists. Now, the following documents are available under the following headings. Application form, registration as a professional engineering technologist. That is your paper-based new registration system. Then it's R01 POC. PC is a policy on the registration in professional categories. Then the one that is very important is the R02 STA, which stands for standard. PE is professional engineer. PT is professional technologist. PCE is professional certificated engineer, and PN is your professional technician. That is a competency standard for registration in professional categories, is what I just now discussed. Then R03 PRO is a processing application for registration of candidates and professionals. And then the R04 T&M guide, PC is a training and mentoring guide for professional categories. Then you get your E17 PRO, criteria and processes for recognition of educational qualifications of professional categories. This is if you've got a foreign qualification. So that is a process that you have to follow. And then this is also very important, is your professional engineering technologist guide to the completion of the registration application form. There's a lot of information on this also. It does help you a lot. The information can be obtained from the ECSA website, which is written there. So you can also, you'll be able to download it when we upload it on the website of Johan van Schalkveld's website. So that's where the site pages are and the documents is that website. So you just go under the exa.co.za, then you find the documents folder and you scroll down to that where it says the technologists on that page. Then you can download all those documents. Now, what are the benchmark qualifications? What do we mean by benchmark qualifications? Benchmark qualifications is the minimum requirements to do for a minimum period of 3 years with 1 year of a level E. So it is your BTech, is your advanced diploma in engineering, and it's your BEng Tech, and also your master diploma in technology that was in the pre-1980. So that requires your experience of 3 years post-qualifications with 1 year at level E responsible. That's your minimum. You can go longer than that too. Okay. All right. Now, you went back a bit forward. Just go forward again. You are. Okay. Right. The next slide is what are the, now you're running a bit too fast, John.
I don't know what happened here. Sorry, Chris. Let me see.
That's all right.
That was the previous one. So that's the next one.
Yeah, now we're going to the, you just go one up, one back. You should get it there. Is now, well, after the benchmark, then you've also got another one. What are the requirements for alternative route? Now, what I mean by alternative route is, can you register if you do not have a benchmark qualification? Yes, you can. It is called the alternative route. The alternative route is the outcome based on your work experience. So the minimum qualifications or the minimum work experience with level E responsibility criteria is stated in Appendix A of the RO2, that long STA, PT, PCE, I mean, PE, PT, PCE, PN. There you will find under Appendix A. Now, this is what it says there. If you look at that, you got your title, experience of benchmark years, and the responsible experience benchmark in years. Now, this is prior to 1971. These are the qualifications. You had your national diploma in technicians and then so forth. And you had to have 14 years with 10 years of experience. That includes in the 14 years. So if you go down, but I don't think it's applicable on you guys, because in 1971, I think 99% of them are retired now. Am I right, Johan?
Yeah, I mean, I registered in the 80s, so and I qualified in 72. So I don't think any of these are applicable. But there's one thing that we need to say here, and that is these people, the people who qualified at FET colleges. We need to find out from ECSA exactly what their requirements are, Chris, because they obviously have done N3, N4, N5, N6, and
yeah, but that is
they
where
might
you're
be
going to
sitting somewhere in there with a 13 and 9 or 11 and 8.
Yes, that's correct. You know, that will fall there. If you look there, no tertiary qualifications in N3, it's 20 years with 10 years and further down on that sheet going down there.
But
it doesn't
N6
show
obviously, N6 will
yes.
obviously be less than that 20 years. So
yes, no, that will be there. Definitely, that will come up on the post 1980. Okay, then the next slide. Now that is for 1972 to 1980. That's where Johan falls in. You know, we did allow for you at your national higher certificate in technicians and your national diploma technicians and your master diploma of technology, which was, I said, is one of the benchmarks, is 3 years with 1 year. So you had your T1 certificate, you had your T1 diploma, T2 certificate, and T2 diploma. These are the years. That is for 1972 to 1980. From 1980, the system changed in the education. You can go to the next one, Johan. There, from 1970, that is still continuing there. 1972, if you had an N4, N5, N6, you had 14, 13, 11 years. And then you had your national technicians diploma is 10. And then you had your advanced certificate in engineering practice 8. And then you came down. That is wrong. It's not 1972. It's 1980 post. So this is what you get if you got your N4, N5, and N6. You are still not limited. You can register if you've got 14, 13, and 11 years. Then we go down to our benchmark. Is your BTech, your advanced diploma in engineering, and your BEng Tech. It's 3 years with 1 year of level E. Now, level E means it's a responsibility where you've got limited supervision. You've got the 5 levels of responsibility, A, B, C, D, and E. And E is the one that you have to have of that minimum. If you say you got your N6, you have to have 11 years of experience at the broadly defined engineering activity with 8 years of responsibility at level E. So it means that at 8 years, so 3 years you were under supervision, at 8 years you were under limited supervision. Okay, so we can go to the next slide, Johan. All right, a lot of candidates ask, do I need a mentor? Essential, but a mentor is advisable. Now, a mentor can be either your supervisor that you're working under, or it could be somebody external, or it could be somebody in the company that is helping you. The purpose of a mentor is to ensure you achieve the 11 outcomes as required for your registration. So the following ECSA document is helpful in determining the duties of a mentor, as which I said, it's a RO4, T&M guide, PCE, training and mentoring guide for professional categories. So please, if you're using your supervisor, you're using as your mentor, go through that document with them and to make sure. Okay, what ECSA guidelines do I use? Now, these guidelines is that you need to use is the following is your ECSA guideline to be used is your RO2, STA, PE, PT, PCE, PN, competent standards for registration in professional categories of PE, PT, PCE, PN. Now, this ECSA document is a standard document for your PE, as I said, is a professional engineer, or PT is professional technologist, PCE is your professional certificated engineer, and then PN is your professional technician. Professional certificate engineer is a person who has written the government ticket on the Mines and Works Factory Act. Okay, so please note the document is different for each category or group. So when you're doing this, so there are different standards there. Okay, next slide, Johan.
I have gone to the next slide.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've spoken about this. Do I use? Let's just go to the conclusion. Okay, now in conclusion, today we discussed the requirements to start your registration using ECSA policy documents. All the ECSA policy documents are important, are to be studied before you start thinking about completing your form or even starting in your career. Successive outcomes as required. So make sure you understand what the outcomes are. If you do not understand, you can contact us through the WhatsApp group if you require, and we will discuss it there to you, so that other people can also understand. Okay, so then the references what I used. Another references is again is the ECSA website under the folder documents under the heading 3.32 new registration for professional engineering technologists, and the website is there at the bottom. So you can, don't know if you want to put it on the chat group also, Johan.
I'll leave this, once we're finished with the last slide, I'll come back to this slide and leave it on so that people can write it down for a few minutes before I'll stop sharing. Okay,
now, all right. So that is all that is there. So the next slide will be the end. And there's a saying, when all else fails and it's broken permanently, read the instructions. So I say thank you. Any questions? And then the next presentations, I'll be talking about the competence standards for registration, which means the different outcomes in the groups. And then we will start tackling each outcome on its own. And thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I think that all else fails, read the instructions. Read the instructions first before you start. And so that is why I put it up there, added it into your slide there, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Now, I want to tell you one thing. Guys who do engineering, they never read instructions. When it's broken beyond repair, we refer to instructions to find out what we did wrong.
Yeah, well, that is the way we usually do. And but in this case, save yourself a lot of trouble and read the ECSA documents first. Go to the website, download those documents onto your computer, read them and read them again. And then once you filled in your first draft of your application, go and read those instructions first. Again, the guidelines, what you should do. And before you hand your application in, after you've now, during the course of writing your application, read those instructions 2 or 3 times, before you hand it in, read the instructions again so that you're sure that you've actually gone according to the instructions. don't think that you know how to do it. The instructions are there to explain to you how the ECSA assessors want your application. So don't change the application to your own mind. The ECSA assessors know what they want, and the way they've asked for it, and it is in the instructions. That is the way that's going to get you registered. If you go your own way, you're going to be deferred. You're going to be turned down. Just don't go and follow your own head. Okay, I'm going to leave this website on for another 30 seconds. Please write it down, and then I'm going to stop sharing. If there's any questions, please unmute yourself, put your hand up, and ask your question.
Okay, I see in the chat group, Ariana asked, is it suggested to find a mentor as a person qualified in 2004 and working in the industry since? For the past four years, I'm working on my own. If you've been working since 2004 on your own, I've been with people, and then the last 4 years you've been working on your own, you should have had enough people, supervisors that are mentoring you, and you're doing well. You don't need to have a mentor. If you're going to register, you want to register, I want to know from you as a technologist and that. And are you going to do, have you got a BTech or have you got your national diploma? Just let me know. So that you can, okay, Ariana, you can actually do it. You can do, just make sure that you go through the requirement documents, the RO2, and make sure that you do comply with all the outcomes.
Tokozani, you've got a head up there. Unmute yourself.
Hello.
Okay, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I just want to check. I've got my BTech currently, and I'm doing my honors in civil engineering, which is in water, and I'm actually lecturing, and I've been lecturing for about 8 years. The last time I was on site or doing anything specifically on site, it was back in 2013 or so, for about 2. I wait till I finish my honors to apply for PR technologist, or can I start now? That's what I wanted to ask.
Okay, I'm going to answer that quickly. I just want to know, when did you get your BTech?
In 2014. No, the BTech it was last year. My diploma was in 2014.
Okay, you got your BTech now. Last
Yes,
year,
last year.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's two ways you can go about it. You can wait for basically 3 years post the registration,
Okay.
3 years experience, or you can go the alternative route, which I mean the alternative route that you fill in your form. Now you had work experience on site. Am I correct?
Yes.
But now you're working
2.
as a lecturer for the last 7 years. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Now I want to tell you something. A lot of people will tell you, no, but you cannot register because you're a lecturer. But you can. If you come to think of it, how do you prepare your lectures? How do you prepare everything? How do you prepare you design your questions for tests? You design your lectures. You design, that falls under your designing. You get your outcomes. You don't just ask them one question. You ask different questions. You think about your different. So you are actually, if you design what you're doing, water, or in what field are you in?
I'm lecturing water treatment and plant operation theory. It's all based on it.
Okay, that's fine, because that you actually design. So you don't just take a question out of the textbook. Am I correct?
No, no, no. I have to thoroughly go
So
through
you're
it.
not one of the lazy lecturers that just take out of
No,
the
cut and paste.
textbook and hopefully the student has never heard about the story. Okay,
No,
so
no.
you design a question on water treatment. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then when you're designing that, although it's in the question exams that you're going to send it or in a test, you ask certain questions, but you don't just ask your first design on water treatment work, for instance, that you're doing. It's not the first time, it's not the first right one. You do 2 or 3 of them until you decide, okay, I'm going to only ask this because this is the best one. So that is
That's
what you're
correct.
going to do in section 2. So you can register on the alternative route if you want to, but then you will have to work on the alternative route. It's the first 5 outcomes that you do on the alternative route, and the rest from going down 6 down to 11, that is on the standard form. So
Oh,
you
okay.
can do that. So don't think because you're a lecturer, you're not going to get anywhere. Think of it
No,
how
okay.
you're working. Then when you're working like in social and you're working there in social environment, you're going to work under engineering there, but you're going to work as if it's with your different groupings of students. You've got different cultures. How are you going to handle them? If they're doing something in the class, in your lecture, how do you handle them? You pick up a chair and you hit them. No, you've got a different system. You understand? Although
No,
you
I
want
get
to.
you.
You
Okay.
understand?
So
You
I
have
just
to
want,
think like an engineering mind in that.
yes,
That's what
yes.
we're looking for.
Oh, okay. I also wanted to ask then, if I had to finish my honors, then would I still have to wait for the 3 years, as you said, since currently I've got my BTech, or
Okay, you
how
got your
would that
BTech
work out?
last year, huh? How long are you
Yes,
going
I
to
only got
still
my
do
BTech
with your
last year.
honors? Another year or 2?
Another year or 2, most probably I'll be done next year if all goes well.
Okay, so then you basically remember your benchmark
Yes.
registration is your BTech. That is 3 years
Okay.
after you've been given, once
Post
you've received your
qualification.
BTech. Yes, post experience after that. 3 years
Oh,
after you received it. So by the time you're finished with your master's, you might have maybe another 6 months to go
oh, okay.
or whatever. I don't know when you got it, but you understand where I'm coming
No, I
from
get your
now.
point. I get your point.
While you're doing your
Thank
master's, you're not a full-time student. You're still giving class, giving
you.
lectures. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm still at work on a full-time
Yeah,
basis.
so that's fine. So remember what I told you. The type of work you're doing, although you're not physically working outside, you're still doing designing while you're doing a lecture. You don't take it off the internet, the question, or you go and find your buddy there in Canada or in USA and ask him for the question paper. No,
No,
you
no,
actually do
exactly.
your own personal questions and you
Yeah.
design, for instance, treatment work, and the students have to give you the solutions, although you have a solution already.
Yes, that's true.
So that still falls under designing. I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but it is designing. You're still doing engineering work
Work.
on that.
Oh, okay.
So
Thanks a lot,
work it in
then.
your environment and make sure that you do get the 11 outcomes that is required there. So you're going through
Okay.
that document, the RO2. Although you're in an ideal situation now, you can already start planning of where your shortcomings are. And you can actually on the 11 outcomes and say, okay, I might short a bit on project management. How do I go
Yes.
about that? And then you talk to the project managers and then you realize what you're doing, even lecturing, you're doing project management yourself too.
Okay. No, I
The
get it.
technologist thinks out of the box. Remember that. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Hopefully it does
Thank you.
help you a lot.
It does. It does.
Okay. I see there's a question from Zolani.
I'd like to know why a candidate is called for an interview to confirm certain outcomes, and how is the interview moderated? Once you've answered that, then Henry has got his hand up, Chris.
Yes. Okay. Now what I a candidate never gets called in for an interview unless you have applied, because an EI interview is an experience appraisal interview. That will only be called in if you applied for application to become registered as a professional. And what happens is there are certain criteria or certain outcomes you didn't answer fully on your documentary evidence, and then you will be called in to give more information on those outcomes. If it's 4 or 5 outcomes, you will be called in to discuss those outcomes to give more clarity on that. After that, you will have basically, there will be 3 interviewers there, and they will ask you questions only on those outcomes. And then their reports will get sent back to the registrator. The registrator will send it to the moderators, who will moderate those that outcomes that is there, the outcome of the interview. And then the moderator is the last person, will say, yes, you can go forward to professional review, or you either get put in abeyance or you get deferred. So that's the only when that will happen. Okay. All right, let's listen to Henry. Henry, come in.
Hi, Johan, Chris, and colleagues. I've just got a question regarding the experience, the 3 years of experience that you require. Does it have to be under a registered professional in the same company? The 3 years of experience, what does that account for?
Okay, that is under your supervisor that you're going to do there. Preferably, they would like to have it under a registered person at ECSA, but sometimes some of the people have got plenty years of experience and they don't want to register. In the private sector, it does happen quite a lot, but it doesn't stop you from there. So that's why you have to go and look at those 2 documents that I said, one for the mentor and the other one for the RO2, the requirements of those 11 outcomes. Then you must answer the questions yourself honestly and say, yes, I do have this outcome I do not have, and you talk to the person that you're working under and to discuss it. Okay. But you can also get to check that you're getting the right experience also. Okay.
Just to elaborate, just to quickly elaborate on my situation. I work for a industrial flooring consultancy or specialist firm, but we're an international company. So I work under the hands of senior designers in France, Spain, and the UK, but they are not ECSA registered. So do I need to then, I know I'll read through the documents, I understand, I would just like to get a broad idea of what it will be required. So will I get clients that I work in close relation with? I've been a director of this company for 3 years now, in Africa or South Africa. But the only people that I can list as people I worked under are my clients, that's professional engineers or technologists.
Yes, you can do that also. That's no problem. And you can also give your direct supervisor also. You do have to have somebody higher up on you. Otherwise, you can't just do what you want to. But you're working with designers, and that you can put them as clients, as colleagues. And then the person above you can be a supervisor. You can use them also as a referee. If they are not registered at ECSA, you just get another person. So you'll have 4 people that are there to be registered. 3 of them at ECSA. They can be colleagues of yours. They can be clients of yours too. And please note one thing, they don't need to be in your field. Remember, everybody has got this idea to say, your referee has to be, if you're doing civil engineering, it has to be civil engineering. No, it can also be electrical engineering if you built up a working relationship with the person, professional working relationship, which they are only testing commenting on your competency. They're not doing character assassination on you, on those 11
Understood.
outcomes. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
I see there's another question on this chat that says, what have you not done with your BTech and you only got a national diploma? I have 3 years working as a site engineer at Steph Stocks. I think you covered that in the qualifications there, Chris, but if you can just answer the question, and then Celeste has a hand up, and I see Tokozani still has a hand up. I don't know, I presume that's an old hand.
That's a Tokozani, is it old hand?
Yes, it's an old hand. I'm just getting difficulty taking it off.
So now we know.
Okay, that's fine. All right, I just want to talk about this about Ifana Molefe. All right, if you got your BTech, it said the benchmark after you've been awarded your BTech is 3 years with 1 year of experience, 3 years experience inclusive of 1 year at level E. Now, if you're working as a site engineer at Stocks, Stephen Stocks, so what do you do there? Do you do designing? Yes, you do designing. You have to do sometimes a temporary design. You have to do a permanent design. You have to do a design and pricing. So that falls under there. But if you've got a national diploma with 3 years working experience, you can register as a technician if you have got the necessary experience and all the outcomes. So please look at document R02. I'm not going to give the whole there, the STA, but that is one of your most important documents. It's one of your most, will give you the best guidelines to go about what you need to know. Okay, and then we can go to Celeste.
So in other words, if you have a national diploma, you need 8 years of experience, of which 5 years in a position of responsibility.
Yes, for a technologist.
In other words, you're still short of 5 years, Fana. I've got bad news for you. It will be easier to wait out the 3 years after your BTech and then to register.
But he can register now as a professional technician if he wants to.
Yeah. Celeste, over to you. You can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, Johan and Chris. Just a quick one. I've now completed most of my portions on the registration, and I would just like to confirm quickly. I know it's post the 3-year experience with 1 year of level E that I require before I do my registration. But in your training and experience report, you write from when you start up until your level E, right? But in your outcomes, do you only report on your level E reporting, or do you include that of your 3 years also?
All right, let me explain this. And that is your TER. That's your brag record of all the jobs you've done and what your responsibility is. Now your engineering report, you only take one project for outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10, preferably, because it's easy for you. You don't need to put in all the other projects, the other jobs that you've done. You must choose one that you're at the level E currently working at, or you worked at level E. So don't, like outcome 1, make sure outcome 1 follows on to outcome 2. Don't go and say your period 1 was by outcome 1, for instance, and you come to outcome 2, then you write it's period 3. Then when you come to outcome 3, you say it's outcome 9. I mean, period 9. And then 9 and 10, you give other different period. It's for us as assessors and even interviewing you very difficult to determine. So take one project and you work through that. Now for 5, 6, 7, 8, there you can use different projects because they don't follow on each other. Because 5 and 6, I mean 4, 5 is basically your communications and project management. Does that help you now, Celeste?
Yes, Chris, thank you very much.
Because you know what the common mistake is? Everybody wants to brag on the engineering report, but we've seen it on your TER, what your experience
yes.
is. So you don't have to tell me, no, I did. Basically what happens is if you're going to do outcome 1 and you put in three periods there, then you start generalizing the problem. We want to see your competency. Like if you say 8, 9, and 10, for instance, those are your period. They were all water projects. Now, when you're describing the problem, you say this is just usually this is what I find. But if you take one project, you say, I had a pressure problem, there was a water flow problem for the people and the communities, and I had to solve it.
Yes.
Short, then it's easy. But once you start using all the different projects, then it gets a problem. We only want to see your competency. Do you get the 11 outcomes competency? We've already looked at your TERs to say, yes, no, you're already on level E, you've got the experience, you're already on broadly defined engineering activity. Now, all what you do is your engineering report is only on one project, basically.
Good, duly noted. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thanks. It's a pleasure. Are there any other questions? Was everybody got load shedding today?
There's no other questions on the chat. Surely there's some more questions, guys. Please, if you don't feel shy, you're most welcome to ask a question. And there's Jay has got a hand up. Go ahead. Jay can say.
Jay, you can answer. You can come in. Jay, unmute yourself.
That's it.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, afternoon. How are you doing? It's long. You're always asking questions, which is good. Keep well. You're keeping well, Jay.
Yes, I'm actually trying to study that that form I must fill in.
Okay.
I just want to know if I apply for a technologist and I kind of don't succeed, would they then be able to have grace on me and put me down as a technician, a professional technician?
No, they can't, because remember your outcome for your there's a difference between well-defined engineering activity and also between a broadly defined engineering activity. Well-defined engineering activity is for technicians. They just use the guidelines and they don't go out of the guidelines. They stick to the guidelines when designing. Now, when a broadly defined engineering activities, you're using the guidelines as guidelines, but then you're thinking out of the box. You do irrational designs after that. You know, you do your rational designs. So that is where the difference is. And there's certain, if you look at the technician's application form, and then you look at the technologist application forms, there are differences in that.
Also, there's
so what you must do is, and I'm going to tell you, you must use the RO2 and the guidelines for to complete your registration form for technologists. But please be not shy and be brutally honest with yourself. If you're too scared to do it, give it to your enemy. They will be honest with you when they're going through your report.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying there?
Yes. That guideline is separate from the RO2.
That's correct. Yes, it's right. It's on the document that's further down. It's your last there. It says the guideline to complete the forms for professional technologists. There's a lot of answers in that also. And it's a very, very good guideline. Although it's been updated, it will help you a lot.
Okay, so the guideline is not on the RO2 and that guideline is on the application form. You
get your application form, then you get all those other documents, And then the last document there is the guideline to complete your registration as a technologist form.
Okay.
There you get a lot of information. So you have to use the RO2 and that guideline together, hand in hand, to ensure that you know where you're going, and to ensure, and please don't make the mistake of just filling in the form. You're going to spend a lot of time on that form, especially the engineering report. That is the report that is the crux of everything, to see your competency.
Yes.
As I explained, your TERs, that's your brag line. There you brag about the jobs you've done. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
There's
Now, your
another,
engineering form, you take one project and you make sure that it's one project, especially with outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. They interlink with each other. The others you can use other periods. That is fine.
Yeah.
But those, try and keep it to one period. Don't use 10 or 20 periods. Or what we want to see from you when you're doing your application, are you competent? Do you understand what is the outcomes that is required?
Okay.
That's all. So you don't have to say, you know, if you have to do now outcome 1, then you put in about 7 periods. It's going to be so difficult for us to determine there. But if you put 1 period and you discuss that, you'll be able to get your registration if you follow the guidelines and the RO2.
Okay.
Okay. Does that
Okay,
answer your question there, Jay?
there's another
Yes.
thing that you've got to keep in mind for your question. When you are when you put in an application as a technologist, your application is reviewed, assessed, moderated by technologists. It's not reviewed by engineers. It's not reviewed by technicians. So it's a peer review. That's what peer reviews means. That when you apply for technologist, you get reviewed by technologists. When you apply for PREng, you get reviewed by PREng people, professional engineers, not by technologists. So, and that is why, also why that if you don't make it as a technologist, they don't pass it on to technicians. We did do it many years ago. We had a committee for technicians and a committee for technologists. And when we said, no, but this guy qualifies as a technician, we would send the document to the technicians, but we don't do that anymore. So that is a very important thing to do.
Okay.
Somebody asked here whether the session is recorded. Yes, the session is recorded. You would have heard in the beginning that we're recording the session, and it will be up, as I said in the beginning, in about a couple of days' time on Johan van Schalkwyk's website, which is given up on the chat there. Earlier in the chat, there it is HPPS Professional CPD COZA /courses 2 /. So that is the one. There's 2 more questions, Chris. One from Bashira and one from Sheryl. So Bashira,
I just want to find out, Jay, you finished.
Yeah, I just want to know, you said last time that if I go the alternative route where I don't need to fill in the TER report.
No, it's a TE. It's not the TER. Then it's your training experience report. I mean, your training and your learning and training report. That is the one next to it. I haven't got the exact title there, but that is the alternative one there.
Okay, I've got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, Jay.
Thanks.
All right. Then it's Bashira.
Hi, good afternoon. I just have a quick question. So I've heard you've mentioned now that you recommend using one project for outcomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and 10, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8 you can use a different project. So my dilemma is that I'm in the public sector. So I'm working for the Department of Human Settlements, and we are in the implementation section where we, we're involved with housing projects. So I have been seconded to a consulting engineering firm, IX Engineers, where I have gained experience, in the urban infrastructure with the designs of sewer pipelines and also in bulk infrastructure. So I've used, one project from that time for, especially in, outcomes 1, 2, and 3, which is sort of design, the type of questions that they ask is design based. And then the others I've used sort of incorporated a housing project that I was involved in. So yeah, so I'm not sure if that, if that is going to work for me, because
Okay, can I just stop you there?
Yes.
I said it's outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. They interlink with each other. So it's better to use one project there for that. Then the remainder, you can use any other project there, because then it's easier for you to get your understanding of the outcomes there. So you're in a managerial position, am I correct?
Yes, basically. So we, our core function is sort of in the project management section, where we have consultants, work for us, but we do, so we get involved at that level, basically.
Okay, now I just want to ask you something there. You're now in the managerial position. You're checking their reports, you're checking their designs. Am I correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Now, what do you do if a consultant doesn't? Do you use a checklist, or do you use your experience to go through that report and that design?
So basically, so we use, we basically rely on, sorry. I just lost my train of thought here.
Okay, so you rely on the consultants to do everything, but you don't check
yes,
their
but
work. Do you check their
obviously,
work?
Yes, I check their work, so when they send through, so they'll send through the documentation, and then we'll have to check that. And
okay, and do they send designs also through to you?
Designs, but yes, but not, it's more on the project management side. So they, for example, the claim rulings, and based on the information, more contract administration, and specification
I want to know
wise,
from you, are you using a checklist, or are you using a checklist but also with engineering judgment? Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, now the consultant sends you a report, they give you a preliminary design, am I right? Of the roads and stormwater, because you're doing low-cost housing, as I understand. Am I correct in that? So they send you the designs, and they just send you the design of the foundations of the houses due to the certain ground conditions.
Yes.
So you look at that, and if you don't agree with it, what do? You come up with an alternative for them. So that falls also under designing mode. You don't need to work by consultants, because you're already thinking out of the box there. You see a design is not correct. What do? You look at the alternatives, you do your own designing, and you sit with a consultant and say, listen, this is what I think is the best design. But you had done 2 or 3 other designs in between. So that does fall under designing. You don't need to sit and work with a consultant at all. You understand where I'm coming from now?
Yes, yeah.
So you understand this. So because you're sitting there and you're doing the work, if you write the consultant submitted the following document or so, design and his report, and you found there were problems, you discussed that in outcome 1. What was it? How did you collect your information? 1.2, that's collecting of information. 1.3 is what assumptions did you make before you even made the design? Because you tend to think out, yes, now I can do it this and this way, and this is what I'm going to use. You know, this formula, I'm going to use this water flow, you know, just out of the thumb. That's your assumptions you made. But now you come to section 2, outcome 2, there you're designing. There you're physically designing. Then you see your assumptions you made might be wrong. So you design 1 or 2 or 3 different types of design. Then you say, but this design that I've done here is the best design due to monetary, which is economics, due to social, ease of construction, for instance, like that. And then so 2.3 is the specifications that you write down. Okay.
Okay.
You understand?
Thank
So
you.
you don't need to, does it help you now to understand how you go about designing?
Somewhat, yes.
What do you mean somewhat? You're in a position of authority. You should know what is to be done. Although
Yes.
you're using the documents, your guidelines or your checklist, but you're also doing engineering judgment. If a consultant comes there and you know for a fact it's going to be a 200 pipe, for instance, for sewerage of the amount of people that you've calculated out, and he comes in with the 600, what are you going to do? You're going to show him that it's not a 600, he's over designing. And he has to tell you why he's over designing. And he has to give you an answer. But in the meantime, you also do your own internal designing, and you base it all on your engineering principles and practices and your engineering judgment. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Okay, it's a pleasure. All right, Cheryl.
Good afternoon, Chris and Johan. I
Afternoon.
just want to ledge on Bashira's, well, not question, but just to maybe follow the train of thought, because from what I'm getting from you, I think sometimes I actually work with her, she's my colleague, but I think we tend to underestimate the work that we do. And like you just said now, you sitting and doing that calculation, I think we want to be like designers. We want to design an urban development, maybe produce drawings, and then we don't think the checking to prove consultants, like you in the example that you just made, is designing. But I'm not saying it's sufficient, of course, but I think we tend to underestimate the value or the work that we do.
Yes, you see, the problem is when you're in a position of authority, or you're a manager, or in a government department, the people send documents to you with their designs. You have to check it. So you don't just sit there with a checklist. You say, yes, he's got this, he's got that, that is discussed. You actually look at his design, you look at his calculations, and you see there's a problem. Then you actually go in and do your own homework, your own design. You might have 2 or 3 different types of design, and you say, but this design is the best design. And this is where you are actually doing designing. Because a lot of people tend to think, even like lecturers, they think, yeah, no, we're just doing class and that's it. But they design things for question exam papers. They are designing, they're using engineering principles. That's what I'm trying to explain to everybody. If you're a contractor, you've never worked for consultants, then you say, but I can never become registered as a professional technologist. You have to design temporary works, you have to design shoring, you have to design scaffolding. That falls under the scope. You're taking certain elements of your BTech, what you've been trained to use it and utilize it. Just remember to go through RO2 and look at the definition of broadly defined engineering activity. I made it very simple, but it's basically using the guidelines. Guidelines means guidelines, but you're thinking out of the box of the guidelines, and you must tell us why you're thinking out of the box, out of the guidelines. For instance, a good example, stormwater. Everybody knows at S4, we did a rational method on stormwater. When you're doing BTech, you're learning other methods of stormwater to be utilized. You must know what the limits are of each one. What are the advantages and disadvantages? And if you're using the rational method, why did you use it? And you tell us. That is also going on toward broadly defined engineering activity. Do you understand where I'm coming from now?
Yeah, I'm 100% covered. But just when you are closing off this in the end, I know you've emphasized a lot on reading the R02 document and the guidelines, but I just want you to not really make a list, but emphasize on the do's and don'ts, especially on the report writing and things that we need to steer away from, and maybe things that you notice when you're sitting in the panel.
If you go to that website that Johan van Skalpret just put there is a talk on that. I did talk about it. I think it was right in the beginning, the do's and don'ts.
100%. Thank you so much.
So just take it relaxed. Go through those documents. Those documents are very, very comprehensive. The problem is where a lot of people get deferred is because they never read R02. They never studied it. They never studied their guidelines to fill in the form, because they think it's so easy to fill in the form. Don't fall into that trap. Remember, this is your career you're working on. This is your registration you're working on. As Johan discussed there, it's peers. We are your peers. We don't work for ECSA. We do this voluntary. We take it our own time. A lot of the guys take leave, personal leave, just to do the interviews for the people. We work after hours on the moderations, after hours for the assessment and that. And many years ago, the person who interviewed me, peer review, was Johan de Quirker himself. Many, many years ago.
And I did give him a good grilling.
Is small. Huh?
And I did give him a good grilling.
Yeah, it was very long because I went the alternative route. And I still went and got my BTech. So nothing stops you. Okay. Does it answer your questions?
I'm covered, thank you.
Hopefully you're going to get it right now, huh? What happened to my camera? I've got a cat that walks here and he took my camera off my screen quickly. Okay, any other questions?
So check the chat there, Chris. There's one or two questions on the chat.
Okay, let's just run quickly up, see where is it. Okay, let's just see the further one. Okay, what is it needed? Okay, what is needed to become for a professional to become an ECSA assessor? The best is that you send an email to engineering@ecsa.co.za and you ask them you would like to become ECSA assessor, moderator, and an interviewer. Then they will put you on the list and they will give you the training. Okay, how do I upgrade from PR Technique to PR Tech? It's the same process for writing reports and being interviewed. It's exactly the same. It's just on a higher level compared to the PR Technique. But you must make sure that you've got the required benchmark qualification, or if you haven't, that you've got your minimum of 8 years with 3 years of responsible at the grade of broadly defined engineering activity. Okay, I see what Adriana, I'm struggling to fill in the tertiary qualification. Does this refer to university subjects or matric? It's university. It's your national diploma and then your BTech, or if you've got a foreign qualification, that you just give your subjects there, not your matric. You don't need to do that.
There's a new question there about the ideal number of TR should one have in their PR Tech application. I currently have 7 due to different roles I had played in the projects. Do you get that?
Okay, that 7 is fine. And what you've there is stated different roles are played on projects and employer changes. That is what you do when you fill in your TR. Where you have a different role, where your role has changed, then you fill in your new TR. And also when you change your employer. So 7 is no problem on 7. I even had guys that sent me 15, 16 already. But it was from the beginning where they started up to there, they wanted to become registered. So there's no problem in that.
There was a question about, Farah said he was struggling to find 4 people that were registered and he's working for Steph Stocks and these people are not registered. Could you handle that, please, Chris?
Okay. In the company, they might not be registered. You have to go and look around there. It can even be colleagues of previous employers that you've worked with that can also give your, what you call it, as a referee. You can also use them, but try and get them to be, there should be people that are registered. Even clients, there are some clients, especially consultants, because you work with consultants, they do have people that are registered that are working for them, because it's not just in your company. Your supervisor, direct supervisor, if he's registered or not, he signs to say, yes, he's confirming that you have done this training. Then the other, and he's confirming that you know what you're doing there. If he's worked with you a long time, and your consultants, when you're working with consultants, you do work with a lot of registered people. Preferably, it can be electrical. It depends on what type of buildings you're doing. It can be electrical, it can be mechanical, it can be also civil, or even geotechnical engineers in engineering. So they are only there to do your competency level. They're not there for character assassination. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay, I see the one question is a candidate before professional application. No, it's not required. You can do apply directly to become a professional without being a candidate. It's just the fee structure will be different.
There's also a question, can it be a professional architect that signs for you as a referee?
I say yes. Why I say that? Because the architects also fall under the engineering profession there, because they are going to tell you if you are competent in what you're doing, because you work with architects a lot of times, and they also do fall under the ECSA. If you look at the registration there on ECSA, the architectural is also falling under them.
Oh, they've got a separate, they separate, they fall under the Council for the Built Environment, where the ECSA also,
yes.
falls under, but they have they have their own council for architects. So
the legislation does fall under ECSA too. So they can sign it off there.
But don't be, you might find some of the assessors would not recognize that, Chris.
Yes, but do yourself a favor, put it there in, and then just try and get another, put him as an extra, which will help, because if you come to think of it, we're all working together to get one goal completed. But try and rather stay away, because it can open up a can of worms. But if you're going to use it, just put in an extra person and for ECSA, because I've had guys that have applied and they got overseas while they're working overseas, they had overseas engineers and that, and they apply, and we just check up to see if they are, and it does get accepted by me. Okay, I see Dinana, Nia, come in. Unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone.
Yes.
So I'm having problems with the engineering reports. I just wanted to ask on that, on outcome one.
Okay.
So on outcome one, I was appointed to be a resident engineer for this project that I'm writing about. So I wanted to know, can my instruction be, my supervisor instructed me to be a resident engineer and to be based on site on a daily, what's the word? Yeah, on like every day, I must be based on site.
You'll be there full time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now I just want to ask you, look at up there, it says define. Now define means what was the problem? So
Okay.
you were appointed as a resident engineer. What
Yeah.
was your purpose there? What was the problem? For instance, you had to construct, for instance, a road, for instance,
Yes.
you know.
Mm.
Then at 1.2, investigate means collecting information. So you get the drawing and that's it, you just build it accordingly. You understand, if you're a resident engineer, you got certain responsibilities.
Yeah.
So you had to build a road, but why did you have to build the road? That you have to say in outcome 1.1. 1.2 is what information were you collecting to ensure that the road will be built correctly? Although it was designed in an office, you as a resident engineer have to check to make sure that it does get built correctly with the correct material. So you get certain information that is required that you have to collect. Then 1 point is that what you say, your assumptions there. For instance, you could say you're building a road, but 1.1, you found a section didn't make any sense. It wasn't the right material as what everybody thought it was. How did you solve it? What information did you collect? What were your assumptions? 2.1, what did you do? How did you design it? 2.2, what alternatives did you look at? And 2.3 is you discuss there what specs that you wrote down there for that problem. Because the road is not just all the same type of material all the way through. Am I right? So
That's
you
true.
get saying, if you get pumping, what did you do about the pumping? How did you solve it?
Okay.
Or did you just say, hey, we got pumping here, you call the designer, you give him a part-time to redesign? No. You as a technologist, you go and see what is the problem and you come up with a design that you give to them and they must go through it and correct the design accordingly. You understand where I'm coming from now?
Yeah, I am, but yeah. But I'm having a problem with 2.1 because now I was just there. I was not part of the design team, or I was just
Okay,
based on
can we
site.
just go
So,
back to what I said previously?
Yeah.
The person designed the road. That's fine.
Yeah.
You're the resident engineer. You design. You busy checking that they're building the road accordingly. The contractor phones you and say, "Listen, yeah, my dear, we've got a big problem. This road is not going to be built on this section like what you say the layer works." What do? You climb in your car, you go and visit the site, you collect the information, you take your soil samples, you see what is the problem, you make your assumption, and then when you come to 2, you don't just give it to the designer. You look and see how you're going to solve the problem, and then you give it to the designer and say, "Listen here, this is my solution. Do you agree, yes or no?" You understand?
Yeah.
Because the RE doesn't just sit on site there and give instructions and then follow the plan. He does that, but he also has to do designing.
Okay.
It might not be a big design, but if it is it falls under the scope of definition of broadly defined engineering activity, that is fine. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. My second question is, how do I maintain my PR registration? Do I, besides just paying the annual fee? Is there any other things?
About? Okay, you're not registered yet, or are you?
Not yet.
Okay,
Just a
so
candidate.
then you do IDP courses, eh?
Okay.
Which we call it IDP, is there. You do certain courses to be trained, to get your registration, to get your information correct. Because if you were doing water and now you're going into roads, you do a lot of self-study. You will attend a few courses, quite a few courses to get yourself up to speed. You get internal training at your office too, which does fall under that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's
All right.
that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, no more further questions.
It looks like everybody's got to go back to work.
I see there's just the one Herman asked there, I think I did answer it. Can you use a referee or supervisor that is not from South Africa as long as they registered with the Engineering Council in the country they reside in? Okay, you must just look there. You can do that, but then you must also get of your colleagues in South Africa that are registered in ECSA as your referees also. Your supervisor can be that person of overseas that you're working under. They are just confirming that you could receive the training and that you did that work that you said you were doing. Okay. Does that help you, Henry, or have you disappeared? Henry, come in.
Sorry, no, I'm
Okay,
just saying that thanks. I understand. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you very
because
much.
you see what happens is I've had guys that come in. They work for international companies and they get trained. They get their supervisors and that are not ECSA registered, but that is fine because it's just to say on the TER, that person has done the requirements. They've done that work. And you can use them as a referee also with their foreign registration number that they put in there. And we do look at that, but I would also like you to put then in that case, put another 2 or 3, you put another 3 colleagues there. Your direct supervisor, doesn't matter. It's just confirming that you have done this training that you've done and solved the problems accordingly.
I've got enough referees locally that will be able to attest for me. It's just that my supervisor is not in South Africa. My supervisor sits in England. So the people I report to is not from South Africa.
Okay,
so
but
my
if he's in
supervisor,
England, is he a chartered engineer?
Yes, sir.
So that's fine. You can fill in because we do recognize that due to our,
Understood.
what you call it, what number between the two?
Mutual
For
agreement.
professional engineers and a mutual agreement, yes. So that's fine, Andrew. You've got no
Understood.
problem there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, James.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
Well, guys, thanks a lot for being with us today. We had a
Okay,
good
there's just
turnout.
the last question, Johan.
Oh,
Just the last one. Yeah, what is a minimum requirement on CPDs for professional registration? There is no minimum requirement.
oh, there is.
Just make sure that you do know if before your registration, there is no minimum requirements. After you
Before
register,
registration.
yes, that you don't need. You just have to show that you're doing courses. But after registration, you have to have 25 points, CPD points over a 5-year period. And it gets divided up into 3 sections. So the one is your,
Let me quickly explain it.
you can explain it, but that's what I say. It's 25 points over a 5-year period.
There's a section A, B, and C, or a section 1, 2, and 3. Section A or section 1 is where you actually have to attend a course. In other words, where you have to learn something new. You need 5 one-day courses or 5 10-hour courses over the 5 years. You can do them all in 1 year, but you and spread them over the 5 years. But if your 5 years is over, you can't spread that into the next group of 5 years. But you can have more than one in that group, and that would count for you. You need 25 total, but the minimum is 5 in group A. You can also do that in a website where you read up and answer questions, or like we're doing the concrete course at the moment, where you do it over a webinar of 5 or 6 2-hour sessions, which gives you the 10 hours. But if you do a 1-day course, which is not 10 hours, it's usually 8 hours. That also counts for 1 CPD point. If you go, it used to be face-to-face courses, and face-to-face courses will obviously come in again now. Then, if you're working in engineering, then and if you work full-time in engineering, you need a certain number of hours, which is usually made up in about 5 or 6 months, which gives you 2 points. The ECSA website tells you the number of hours, gives you 2 points. So there you already have 10 points over the 5 years if you're working in engineering. So now you have in group A 5 points, and in group B you've got 10 points. But if you're mentoring somebody, you're a professional, you're mentoring somebody, and I think 50 hours of mentoring gives you 1 point. So that is also under that group. Then group C. First of all, if you're a member of a voluntary association like IPET, like SAICI, like Institute of Mechanical Engineering, or electrical engineers, or one of the ECSA accredited voluntary associations, you get 1 point per year. But if you attend, if you're a committee member or a council member or something like that, depending on the number of hours that you spend in council meetings and things like that, you also get points. Again, 10 points for 10 hours for 1 point. If you do a master's or a PhD, you get points for that. If you do assessments for ECSA, or you do accreditation of universities of technology, you get points there. So that is basically the system. You've got the A, B, and C groups. The C group is for your voluntary work and your professional work, and being a member of a society. And B is the working in, because as you work in industry, you actually pick up knowledge as well. And that is why that was given as part of CPD. And then obviously, as I said, you need to have at least 5 points of accredited courses that you attend, which can be online, it can be stuff that you read up on. If you go on Johan's website there, which he said, that website, professionalcpd.co.za, there are some courses there that you can pay for, and some of them are free. That will give you a 1 hour or so, and so. And in other words, that way you pick up your 10 hours as well for a point. Some of them are free, and you can actually get free CPD points there. And then at IPET, we try and give it at an affordable price. That's why the concrete course for non-members is just under 1,000 Rand, but for members, it's 650 Rand. Obviously, if you remember and you pay your membership fee, you get a discount for courses and things like that. SAICI does that as well. If you're not a member and you do a SAICI course, you pay double for what you pay for a course, and usually they in the region of about 3,500 Rand for a one-day course. As I said, at IPET, we try and be affordable, and so because we look after our members in a different way than what SAICI does, but SAICI gives you a lot more other facilities and things that we cannot do. We don't have more than 10,000 members like they do. We have less than 1,000, and we're trying to work up towards 1,000. So you're welcome to join us. It's free to join, and as a non-registered person, the first year is free, and thereafter it's, I think, 380 Rand and or 400 Rand, and if you're a professional, it's 550 Rand, but you get a discount from ECSA for being a member, which is more than the 550 Rand. If you're a member of SAICI, you also get that discount, but that's less than your membership fee. So that is how it works, and I hope I was clearing up and giving you enough information there.
I see there's just one more question. Gundo asks, on outcome 4.3, is it a must that we should have experience in FEDIC contracts or GCC, or can it be any contract? Basically, any general conditions of contract you can discuss under 4.3, but you must also know of the different types of contract that we do encounter in South Africa. So that you have to also, you don't have to have the experience. If you know about them and you can discuss one of the contracts where you had the experience, that is sufficient. Okay, so I think that's about all of it. Is there any other questions, or we can wrap it up now?
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop recording. Thank you for attending.